It is Tuesday. Ah, you know you like it. You know you're happy that it's here. And you know that you are here with me. What are we doing? We are reading The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand. A travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. Read for you by your oh so humble narrator, Tim Maloney. Sir Arminius, whatever you want to call me, I am generally okay with it. We have made it through a lot of good stuff in this book, and this chapter is the longest chapter I think I have maybe ever read, but at the very least, in my audiobook narrating career, this is the longest chapter I have read. We started this chapter last week. It's chapter 14. I want to say chapter 14, called Bangkok's Siren Song. And we started it, and I read for 3 hours and 15 minutes or so. We made it through part 1. Tonight, we will start part 2. There's a chance, I think there's a part 3 too. There's a chance we make it through all 3 parts tonight. But let's see where the timing is running, because typically I like to read these for about an hour and a half, give or take. Now, the reason for that is just because be- I am recording these. And because I am recording these, that means I don't really take breaks to rest my voice. I don't sip on my gin and juice, laid back, with my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Okay, I don't do that anyway, but I don't take breaks typically to drink throughout, anything like that. It means my voice may run down a little bit more than normal. When I am doing my normal audiobook narration, hours and hours I can go because I've got little breaks that are built into it when you reach the end of chapters. When I have to pause to do a retake on a regular book, I can, take my sips of water or tea or whatever it happens to be that evening, but I don't do those on these live reads. So I try to keep them at around an hour and a half, give or take. 3 hours and 15 minutes last time. That was just the live read part, not this part at the beginning of me vamping at you guys. Yes, vamping. We will see where we are at when we get to the end of part 2 in here. So part 1 saw Larry arriving in Bangkok. He started by saying when he first got to Bangkok, prior to all of his going up to the monastery, he hated Bangkok. But he just wasn't in the right mindset for Bangkok. Now that he has returned from his sojourn in the north of Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, I Monastery, Buddhism, monkism, all of those things, he's in the right mindset. So he has returned. He is staying at an apartment because he knew he was going to be there a little bit longer. And he is staying right across from a gigantic shopping area called Asiatique. And it is a very touristy type area, which is normally what he stays away from. So he has gotten into the neighborhoods around and he's finding the local spots. And he met a fruit vendor. named Charlemagne. Charlie, for short. And, well, they hit things off. They have engaged in a little romantic tete-a-tete. And this experience in Bangkok is clearly much better for him than his previous one was. He has met her cousin and eaten at her restaurant. He's gone to the palace and seen the giant green emerald Buddha. You know, giant as in like yay big, itty bitty. He's seen the palace. He's gone to meet the water monitors. You know, giant carnivorous lizards that just live in one of the central parks in Bangkok that tourists are in and running up and down the paths and things like that. These water monitors just live there. It's a little crazy. It's like alligators just roaming, Central Park. But he has definitely encountered a love. And that's where we will pick up as we get started today. If you missed any of the previous part of the chapter, or any of the previous chapters, or other books that I have read, all available on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/at Sir Arminius. I say that because even if you are on YouTube right now, I'm streaming on Twitch, Kick, X, Rumble, and YouTube. So, I try to tell people where they can go get the replays. Hey, Mr. DJ, Soponte Replay. Hey, Mr. DJ, can't you turn the audiobook up? Reminder, if I read too fast or too slow for you, YouTube gives you the ability to play at your own speed. Up to like way slower and up to 2 times the speed. Whatever makes you happy. You can throw in the earbuds while you are doing chores. Listen to the book. It's free. It's on my YouTube channel. Of course, if you do want to support the author, and I do recommend that you do so, you can check them out on Amazon or on the videos that are on Rumble and YouTube. I have some links for you. Go check him out and throw him some love too, would you? And now, everybody, sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy. If you're in a cold climate, get yourself a hot drink. If you're in a hot climate, get yourself a cold drink. Put your feet up, relax in. Or throw in some earbuds and go do chores. I don't care. You do you. But let's get started again into The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand. A travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. As we pick back up with Bangkok Siren Song, Part 2. Coffee steamed in our mugs on side tables. The early morning light glowed softly through the curtains. I turned to Charlie, curled against me in the sheets. I was thinking about going to Wat Arun today, I said. Passing her my phone. This was the view from Horzamut last night. She took it from me, eyes widening as she scrolled through the photos, especially the one of the temple lit up like a holy beacon across the river. Wow, she whispered. So beautiful. It really was. I'd love to go see it up close with you, if you're up for it. But if you've got things to do or just feel like laying low, I'm not going anywhere. Everything feels empty without you. She smiled, handed the phone back, and nuzzled a little closer. Yes, I love to go, she said. Arun is very special. Other things wait. Dim sum or breakfast in bed? I offered. We stayed in bed far longer than planned, tangled up in each other's heart and souls until the sound of housekeeping working next door was a reminder that time still existed. We shared a quick shower, dressed in record time, and stepped out into Bangkok, ready for whatever came next. In terms of central location, forget it. Bangkok Lame isn't close to anything unless you count the river. A handful of local hardware, beauty supplies, mani-pedi boutiques, auto dealerships, scooter repair, pharmacy shops, and families of stray dogs with generational roots in the neighborhood. It's not on the tourist radar, aside from the Asiatique night market. And that's exactly why I'd fallen for it. The pace, the people, the life. I attacked online transit maps like a SEAL commander prepping a hostage rescue as I plotted a route to Wat Arun. The temple was miles away and across the river, a not so simple journey that my system transformed into an urban triathlon. Number one bus to BTS to Gold Line to some yet to be identified bus, and finally, a walk. From my untrained, warped vantage point, this labyrinth seemed efficient. Did I consult Charlie? Wing the doorman? Anyone with a shred of common sense? No. I had a system. Flawed as hell, yes, but it was my system. Besides, a couple of hours traversing the public transport quagmire promised glimpses of parts of Bangkok resolutely uncurated for tourist consumption. Having cracked the Da Vinci Code of Bangkok's tangled transit, we fueled up with dim sum and cold tea at our favorite spot. 30 minutes later, we were back on Charon Kroong Road, hopping the number one bus towards Safan Taksin Station. Across the Chao Phraya we went, the first stop to Krung Thonburi, then transferred to the Gold Line SkyTrain. We rode that to its end of the line, Klong San Station, before spilling out onto the street to flag down a bus that was headed in a general northerly direction, paralleling the riverbank. The goal was simple: close enough to walk, but get a real walk in, too. I wanted asphalt under my flops, a chance to see what life looked like on that side of the water, away from the tourist glare. Chalermwan slipped comfortably, yet stylish flats on without a hint of complaint about the couple of miles we might stroll. And then the shocking part. It actually worked. My convoluted, multimodal transit plan unfolded exactly as conceived. By the time our feet hit the pavement on the edge of the Klong San district, the mid morning sun was already doing its best to roast us like chestnuts. Through it all, Chalermwan hadn't said a word of complaint about our odyssey. No headshakes in disbelief, not even a subtle eye roll. Just her knowing smile, the kind that suggests she was deep in calculation. Was this slightly deranged Farang she was falling in love with brilliantly resourceful, completely unhinged, or some perplexing, adorable blend of the two? Her words, not mine. Regardless of her internal verdict, we walked hand in hand, the heat a shared experience, laughing at nothing and everything, simply together, admiring the vibrant, messy beauty unfolding around us. Our walk meandered first along Somdet Chao Phraya Road. We passed under the AH 123 overpass and turned to the right, entering a quiet family neighborhood, the kind where life spills into the street without apology. Bikes leaned lazily against gates, colorful laundry billowed on lines overhead. Somewhere, a radio playing Luk Thung as cats eyed our passing with suspicion. From open doorways, the rhythmic clatter of woks and skillets, replete with aromatics of garlic, onion, oyster, and soy sauces, ginger and basil filled the air. provided the neighborhood's authentic life symphony. The narrow streets and alleys eventually spilled us out not at our intended destination, but at the foot of something unexpected. Yep, should have studied the map more. A vast, gleaming white stupa raising into the blue sky like an alabaster sail. It stopped us in our tracks with a sudden breathtaking awe. It was Wat Praya Ur Wang Sawat Warawihan. The sign I saw was in beautiful, frustratingly illegible Thai script. For all the guidance it offered me, it might as well have been scrawled by a Martian with a calligraphy fetish. Charlie came to my rescue with a translation, but in that moment, all that registered was the stillness. A profound quiet that catches in your chest, delivering a humbling lesson in the meaning of peaceful existence. We wandered the grounds, a lovely pocket of temple calm, maintained with a level of care and devotion that bespoke of the love the residents' monks had for their home. Broad stone paths, warm beneath our feet, led around the great white stupa. It stood sentinel, radiating light with an almost arrogant serenity, as if it knew exactly how photogenic it was. The only movement came from a few locals and monks performing quiet rituals, lighting joss sticks and kneeling before a gilded Buddha tucked into a wall niche. The air itself felt sacred, with the sweet perfume of jasmine and sunshine. Even the ubiquitous birds that loved to hang around the temples seemed to have dialed down their volume, offering softened versions of their hit songs like they too had taken a vow of reverence. For a few minutes, basking in that stillness, I was utterly convinced we'd somehow tripped into a hidden Shangri La, granted a peek behind the curtain by some cosmic lottery, which, of course, was pure, unadulterated baloney. A quick check via the map later confirmed it wasn't a secret at all. It was a well known destination. We hadn't discovered the undiscoverable, we'd just shown up unfashionably early. Something about the symmetry, the white on white palette, the elegant grounds tickled the back of my mind. I knew this place. Or at least, I'd seen it before. Then it clicked. The king and I. Rogers and Hammerstein came ghosting in from some long dormant neurons, dragging silk gowns and stage fog into the fore. I turned to Charlie and leaned in, unable to stop myself. In a voice better suited for a solo shower performance than Sacred Ground, I sang the only line I could remember. Getting to know you, getting to know all about you. She gave me a look of mock horror, her hands clasping her cheeks, eyes wide. You sing so bad, she laughed. She reached out and grabbed my face and kissed me, just enough to jolt me out of Broadway and back into Bangkok. Exiting the grounds, we ducked down a covered alley, letting the rhythm of the neighborhood and our curiosity steer us. Tetsaban Sai One Road gave way to Soiwat Kanlaya, then to more narrow alleys, then narrower still, cutting through the guts of a working neighborhood. No landmarks, no signs I could decipher, just the quiet thrum of local life. Barefooted toddlers chasing each other, a woman sweeping her stoop with a twig broom, buckets of water sluicing down a worn path from a doorway, an old fellow ironing shirts and pants in his doorway. Then, as if it had risen from the ground through a magic veil, Wat Kalayanamit Warmahawayan appeared. You won't find it on most of the popular tourist maps. See 8 watts in a day maps. Which is a blessing. Despite being one of the most important temples in Thailand, it remains a place for locals. Not spectacle, but sanctuary. Its reputation runs deep in the city, deep within Buddhism, rooted in community life with ancient daily rituals that have been performed for longer than living memory can account. Built 2 centuries ago by a nobleman who offered his fortune and land to King Rama III, Wat Kalayanamit was never meant to dazzle. It was meant to serve. The monks there are teachers, not simply practitioners. School children still file through its gates each morning. Families come seeking blessings, lighting incense with the same quiet gestures their great grandparents once made. A massive Buddha, Fra Buddha Tri Ratanayak, sits at the heart of it all, towering over 50 feet tall, presiding over the temple like a figure who's seen everything and still manages a faint, knowing smile. The locals believe his presence brings peace and luck. I felt like he was seen into and through me, which was a little unnerving considering the thoughts I was thinking about Charlie at that moment. She was backlit by the sun. My mind embraced her in every way. There's a giant bell beside the main hall, weathered from centuries of use, the enameled paint chipped or faded away in many places. If you ring it, they say, fortune will follow. We rang it several times. But what struck me most wasn't the Buddha or the bell. It was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the kind of stillness you only notice after stepping out of the noise. It was even quieter than the previous temple. The sound waves felt muffled like we were wearing noise canceling headphones. I wasn't the only one to notice. Charlie pointed it out first. The temple grounds are an unusual blend with traditional Thai rooftops, their tiered elegance rising above and traditional Wat design motifs, but intermingled with Chinese guardian statues, pagodas, dragons coiled in stone, an odd square chetty, and curved gables trimmed in porcelain mosaics. The grounds feel as if they're folded in on itself, dense with iconography all pointing inward. We were in the Wihan offering our thanks to Buddha. I had been slyly watching Charlie through our explorations, reveling in her by my side, her serenity, her presence, watching her explorations while deeply enjoying her quiet yet playful companionship. I leaned in and whispered my thoughts into her ear. She pinched my arm, her eyes lighting up with loving fire paired with that dazzling smile I now knew so well. Charlie, wisely, drifted off on her own, drawn toward the intricate murals stretching from floorboards to rafters, to explore the epic tales the temple wore as its skin. I settled in with some monks for a chat, joined in with a chant, and received a blessing. The monk leading the chant was about my age, his voice low and steady, and for a moment everything else faded away. I was back in the mountains, my heart filled with joy. No photos, no commentary, just breath and incense. When I rose, I felt calm, peaceful, and grateful. I bowed a deep, sincere why to the monks, then turned to see Charlie watching me with what seemed like admiration. She clasped her hands in front of her, then bowed to me with a look I hadn't seen from her before, raw and quietly fierce. I remembered the line from The Lord of the Rings. I reached out, holding her hands in mine. Our eyes met, and I whispered into her ear, "You, my dear Chalermwan, bow to no one, especially to me. I am not worthy of that kind of reverence." She gazed back at me, tears spilling free. I pulled her close, holding her tight as her body shook through those tears. Round about 2:30 p.m., we finally arrived at Wat Arun Rachawaraman Rachawarmahawaihan. Go for it. You know you want to try and say it. Take your time. It's okay. The place was packed. One thing I found oddly amusing. At larger Watts, there is a cottage industry that's sprung up. Renting historically accurate Siamese outfits to visitors has become a thing. For a fee, locals and tourists alike can slip into period perfect costumes, shoes not included. It's somewhat comical to see couples dressed to the nines in glowing, colorful royal garb from the Sukhothai or Ayutthaya eras, only to spoil the illusion with Chuck Taylor high tops and Nike Airs. They pose for pictures like Hollywood extras, often hiring professional photographers who hover on site to capture that perfect moment. The first time I saw this, I thought there must be some special event or festival. But no, this spectacle is just another everyday occurrence at Wat Arun and at several other temples I visited. Holy meets moly with a side of visual treats. There we were. Me in linen slacks and a short sleeve button down, doing my best impression of respectably and respectfully neutral. Charlie was beside me in a flowing long dress, elegant and understated, with a delicate silk wrap she'd brought to cover her shoulders. Around us swirled a living pageant, wide eyed with selfie sticks and ties decked out in ornate period costumes, like extras on the set of a historical epic. Brocade jackets called kurui, bejeweled hairpins, chongkraban loincloths, and golden sashes gleamed in the afternoon sun. The effect was stunning and intensely surreal. For the first time in ages, I wished for a little hallucinogenic buzz to go with the visuals that swirled around us. It was clear that for many Thais, this wasn't cosplay or novelty. It was pride, a chance to connect with their deep heritage, to step into something ancestral and walk in it for an afternoon. But me? A farang with an understated, and now somewhat damp, shirt and a shaky grasp of cultural nuance? I had no clue. Charlie nudged me. You want to wear Siam clothes? I paused, weighing it. I could already imagine the ill fitted silk tugging awkwardly at my shoulders, while camera happy tourists snapped away and locals giving me that look, half bemused, half resigned. Honestly, I said, turning to her, I don't think that's right. I would feel like I was wearing someone else's skin. Like trying on something sacred because it looks cool for Facebook. She nodded questioningly, quietly, then pulled out her phone. I watched as her thumbs flew across the screen, searching for something. It took her a while, but she found what she was looking for and held the screen up to me. Cultural appropriation? I blinked, stunned. Wow, I said with pure admiration. You're getting really good at that. But inside I was thinking about that line, somewhere between thick and thin, between appreciation and appropriation, and how slippery it can be, especially when you are a guest in someone else's world. Humility and respect felt right. Knowing when something isn't yours, no matter how beautiful, how audacious, felt better. It felt more honest to politely decline. That awareness, clumsy, evolving, full of good intentions, but with occasional missteps, was becoming part of my journey. I did, however, seriously considering buying one of those outfits for Halloween back in the States. No one could top that. After strolling Wataroon's paths and pavilions, we climbed the intimidating, almost vertical steps of the prang itself. Yes, you actually get to do this. Climbing an ancient, revered national treasure is totally acceptable in Thailand. In America, we'd be standing 200 feet back wearing a VR headset. We made a slow spiritual lap around the mid tier, trying to decipher all that we were looking at. I was so engrossed in the sheer fact that I was standing on and in a living piece of Thai and Khmer history that it was emotionally overwhelming. After a treacherous descent, those worn steps are about 18 inches tall and only 10 inches deep. We wandered into the small but wonderfully engaging museum, spending time to cool down while reading the story of Wat Arun and its place in the Thai cultural assembly. Then we wandered more. We found a quiet, shaded alcove beneath a bower, heavy with old, twisted white wisteria in full bloom. An elderly monk sat beneath the cascading blossoms, wearing a look that suggested either deep meditation or mild boredom. It turned out to be the latter. His eyes lit up as we approached, and before I knew it, we were deep in conversation. His English was careful but clear. His enthusiasm for the temple's history and its modern role was contagious. We talked for quite a while, covering everything from Wat Arun's place in education and community life, to its architectural quirks and foreign influences, to the biography of its founding abbot. Somdet fra Vanarat, he told me, his voice steady. He helped make this temple what it is today. After Ayutthaya fell and the new capital moved here, it was he who guided the restoration during Rama II's time. I nodded, taking it in. I'd read plaques in the museum and Wikipedia before, but something about hearing it from him, under those blossoms on temple grounds, made it stick. He was a wise man, the monk said, smiling faintly. He knew beauty and discipline must go together. That is why this temple is strong. I noticed Charlie shifting, subtly at first, then with the unmistakable signs of wanderlust. A gentle pivot here. A composed glance at her make believe watch. The polite half smile of someone saying, Fascinating, truly, but I might chew off my own arm if we don't move soon. I began wrapping things up, grateful to our impromptu teacher, and mildly panicked by the thought of Charlie reaching terminal boredom. We bowed, smiled, and made our exit with all the grace of people pretending not to be making an exit. That gentle monk smiled and winked like he'd seen it 100 times before. How is it monks always seem to know everything? We wandered the perimeter of the temple grounds, tracing neatly trimmed paths and lush landscaping, pointing things out quietly as we went, until the path curved toward the river. And there it was, right in front of me. A ferry dock, unloading a fresh horde of camera-toting pilgrims. I blinked, half expecting it to vanish in a puff of irony. You have got to be fucking kidding me. I walked over to the ticket counter in disbelief. Where does this go? I lamely asked. Safan Taksin, last stop, the woman said, barely glancing up. 40 baht. I stood there, dumbfounded. The village idiot, staring at her like she'd offered to beam me up, Scotty style, for the price of a coffee. Safan Taksin. The dock was a mile from our apartment. The very place we'd started from. The BTS was above the ferry terminal, which I had turned into the launch pad for a convoluted pilgrimage. I'd invented an odyssey, threading alleyways, hopping trains and buses, and overcomplicating every stretch like a man on a personal quest to avoid convenience at all costs. All the while, a ferry boat had been sitting right there, on the river, waving its little fairy flag and laughing at my deeply committed incompetence. I turned to Charlie. She'd clearly pieced together what was flying through my head and was doing her best, nobly, heroically, not to laugh. But her torso and shoulders betrayed her. They were jiggling with the effort of containment as her face was scrunched up, desperately trying not to crack. Well, I said, exhaling a laugh before it fully formed, this is what I get for not asking you about anything. She nodded solemnly, biting her lip desperately, trying to not burst out in laughter like a saint, while her eyes sparkled and twinkled with moisture, with exactly the kind of incredulous joy that comes from seeing someone walk headlong into their own lesson, and love them even more for it. She nodded, still suppressing outright laughter, then slipped her hand into mine. But adventure, right? She said breathlessly, stifling her obvious strain. She took a deep, exaggerated breath, giggled, then sang, Getting to know you. Pitch perfect. Better than I ever could. Then exploded into full body laughter as I burst out in hysterics at my foolish self. We held each other through that uproarious moment, adoring each other. We grabbed a bench portside on the upper deck, tucked in close, the river breeze teasing at Charlie's wrap, the sun making her jet black hair glow like obsidian as she leaned her head against my shoulder with the kind of relaxed affection that makes you forget you ever had doubts about anything. The city floated by. Ornate temple spires jutted skyward, their gold leaf flickering in the sunlight like scattered treasure. Low slung shops and houses lined the banks, peeling paint telling stories of decades, maybe a century or two survived. Riverside restaurants, both established and makeshift, their tables full. Laundry fluttered from balconies as prayer flags fluttered alongside. Families perched on wooden docks, fishing poles and net lines in hand, chatting with the ease of lifelong neighbors. The river teemed with an inconceivable array of watercraft. Longtail boats cutting wakes like brushstrokes, gleaming speedboats slicing the river's surface, slow moving ferries creaking as they bobbed, long barges hauling their loads, and artfully paddled sampans and reu kalong balancing loads of fruit, flowers, vegetables. The vendors shouted greetings to each other. Their movements felt choreographed. A ballet danced by time and the river itself, turning a commute into a fairy tale boating magazine cover come to life. Charlie pointed out landmarks now and then with calm certainty. Over there, best mango sticky rice in city, she said, nodding toward a faded store festooned with yellow marigolds. And that little place? I asked. She grimaced. No, we not eat there. Bad. Food make sick for days. Her voice carried the easy authority of someone who'd grown up just upstream, knowing the river's secrets and hazards. The ferry stopped at every pier, four in our direction, a river bus plying its route. Locals hopped on and off with the practiced ease of people who didn't have to decode four transit systems to get there. Lobster headed tourists shuffled behind, clutching GoPros and half empty water bottles, caught somewhere between dehydration and amazement. Their eyes darted from temple to phone to vista, looking awestruck while overheating. And there we were, nestled into it all, letting the city unfold at river speed. 25 minutes later, we pulled up at the Sampan Tuxin dock. Just a 5 minute tuk-tuk ride from the apartment. And that's with heavy traffic. It felt like a minor triumph. I'd led us on a needlessly convoluted odyssey only to land right back where we started. Wiser, sweatier, and definitely a bit footsore. As we stepped off the boat, I turned to Charlie, trying to sound casual but fully aware I'd just orchestrated the great Bangkok detour of 2024. So, I asked, what did you think of my grand route plan? She grinned, wide and genuine. You fun, she said. I like time to seeing you discover. There it was. Affection laced with amusement. Here's a PSA for those of you determined to follow my footsteps. The commercial ferries, fast commuter barges, water taxis, and sleek longboats tearing through Bangkok's rivers and klongs have a rhythm all their own. Equal parts insanity and choreography. Out on the water, there's a left of way etiquette that's observable, but when it comes to loading and unloading passengers, That's a whole different beast. It's madness disguised as a moving, breathing art installation. Unlike the safety first composed and regulated docking procedures you see on public ferry services from Venice to Seattle, in Bangkok, boats don't tie up in any traditional sense. Instead, a crew member leaps off the boat as it approaches the dock, holding the mooring line with a kind of graceful urgency, acting as a human anchor. Does that crewman tie off to a cleat? Why would you when you'll be there for less than a minute? The boat might still be moving, but that doesn't matter. The captain, with a level of expertise that is as skillful as it is poetic, deftly maneuvers his vessel to hover an inch from the dock, rapidly applying quick bursts of forward and reverse thrust. Wakes and currents be damned. Meanwhile, the human anchor is barking out the station name like a drill sergeant. Get on! Get off! Move it, pal! But in Thai. All of this unfolds in a New York minute. Passengers board and disembark with the urgency of a subway crush at rush hour. The boat never quite stops. It slows just enough for bodies to hop on and off before it roars back to life for the next dock. At the last possible moment, the crewman springs back aboard, and they're off again. It's a well rehearsed dance, repeated over and over throughout the day. I found myself watching that dance with a mix of awe and disbelief. After getting comfortable using the rivers and klongs as a faster and more efficient way to travel the length and breadth of Bangkok, I came to appreciate the art of this rapid ingress egress process. It's like crossing a busy street. Swift, committed action is required, or you'll find yourself in the drink. One false step, one momentary lapse of focus, and you could end up swimming alongside the boat. And believe me, the crew and fellow passengers will be rolling in hysterics, though they'll also be quick to save your soggy butt. It's messy and utterly thrilling, and in its own way, a gritty performance piece staged on water. I had a plan. Quietly, carefully, sneakily hatched the day before and orchestrated over the course of our day's wanderings. Because what better time to scheme and implement than during well timed bathroom breaks? Back at our apartment, I turned to Charlie and asked with mock gravity, My dear Charleroi, may I take you out on the town tonight? Dinner and dancing, if you'll have me? Her lips curved into her enigmatic Mona Lisa smile, eyes flickering with curiosity and a teasing hint of mischief. I love to. Then you'll need to dress up. She cocked her head, her fingers playfully tracing my chest, asking, What do you wear? I showed her my carefully selected ensemble. Gray silk slacks, a cream silk shirt with a whisper of pattern, and a black closed toe shoe. Fresh out of the box and required for one of the places I'd scoped out. She kissed me, long, soft, and deliberate. Then, wordlessly, she turned and slipped out the door. Her footsteps were light, a dance of their own, echoing the quiet promise in the air. Now that she had her own key, our comings and goings no longer required planning or timing. It was a small but potent signal, an unspoken commitment wrapped in trust, and something I welcomed. She did too. About an hour later, after a shower and some manscaping, I was just finishing dressing when I heard the door open. There she was, standing in the doorway like a vision plucked straight from a dream. Her black pencil dress, fringed with lace, hugged every curve as if it had been stitched just for her, her matching heels clicking softly against the floor. Her makeup was subtle, nearly invisible, simply enhancing her natural elegance that needed no adornment. A micron thin gold chain traced her graceful neckline. A single black pearl dangling delicately, matched perfectly to the earrings she wore. Her presence shifted the air in the room. everything felt warmer, brighter, alive. I couldn't breathe. She didn't say a word as she crossed the room, unblinking and intense. Her gaze never left mine as she reached out, taking the bottle of cologne from my grasp. Our fingers brushed, just a feather light touch, but it sent a shiver straight down my spine. Slowly, deliberately, she dabbed the scent behind my ears, then on my wrists, each movement measured and intimate. Honestly, almost too much for my heart to handle. It was one of the sexiest things I've ever encountered in my entire life. I stood there, utterly dumbfounded, caught between reverence and desire, struggling to string words together. Finally, I managed. Wow! How's that for slick? Charlie broke the spell, a playful smile on her face as she twirled on her heel. You like dress? She teased, as if daring me to say otherwise. I swallowed, trying to regain some composure, but it didn't come. You are absolutely dazzling. I like your dress, but I love who's in it much more. A delicate blush flushed her cheeks. It was more than just a compliment. I couldn't fully express my thoughts in that moment, but there was a lot of substance behind it. I stood there soaking her in, realizing no words could ever quite capture how she made me feel. Dinner reservations had been secured the day before as I hatched my plan between mouthfuls of delicious things in Chinatown. Sushi Masato, an omakase sushi bar boasting a Michelin star, helmed by Maestro Masato Shimizu, a culinary rock star who'd paid his dues in kitchens across the globe before opening his own spot back home in Bangkok. I'd stumbled on it after some deep online digging, drawn in by rave reviews, and knew it was perfect. It was how I wanted to introduce Charlie into my sushi world. Not just as a karmic payback for the dim sum guts and gore marathon, but because watching Charlie enjoy a night out on the town, that would be my real prize. With plans set, my pulse racing, I ordered a grab. Masada was tucked away in the Sukhumvit Tong Lo borderlands, an area of Bangkok known for hidden foodies destinations. We arrived at the entrance to the alley where the restaurant was hidden away, and let's just say it wasn't quite the polished atmosphere I'd envisioned. The pavement was slick and glistening from a recent washdown, the wet surface catching streetlights and neon from other small alley businesses in fractured reflections, like a noir film set, but without the Hollywood budget. Shadows pooled in the corners, the air thick with a mix of exhaust and the lingering ghost of last night's party. It looked sketchy, as if Harya Chanansky would be slouched nearby on a battered 5-gallon bucket, writing a poem, nursing a drink, begging a smoke. Definitely nothing like the glossy upscale vibe you'd expect from a Michelin starred fish destination. But we pressed on, arm in arm, weaving carefully down the narrow alleyway. Eyes peeled, scanning for a sign and any potential trouble. I know I've said Bangkok is safe, even in the alleys, but stupid can strike anywhere, and I had the precious Charlie on my arm. Just as I was about to question the wisdom of hanging in the alley and double check the GPS, Charlie gently squeezed my arm and pointed. There it was. A barely there, unassuming facade. A wall of drying oxblood red and graying wooden slats, framed by a stark, flat black beams. It didn't exactly scream restaurant, more like forgotten samurai outpost. The only clue that this was no ordinary entryway was subtle. A dimly lit alcove tucked into that dark wall that had a ground lantern faintly glowing. A small brass plaque etched with delicate Japanese characters caught the faint glow of hidden lighting, one that had to be burning at a mere 3 watts. It was affixed next to a recessed blonde wooden door that looked as if it belonged more in a Zen temple than a semi seedy Bangkok back street. We slipped into the alcove. I reached for the handle, but before I could grasp it, the door slid open with a whisper. A hostess greeted us with a warm, welcoming smile that cut through the alley's shadows. She led us forward into a world that transformed the dread outside into refinement, elegant, with an air of quiet excitement, which made my pulse quicken. We'd stepped through a hidden doorway into something precious, and I was hungry. The ground floor was a visually thoughtful interplay of deep burgundy leather banquet four-tops flanking pale wood tables, grounded by a cool cement gray aisle that cut confidently through the space. It exuded understated elegance, quietly confident, never overreaching. But our hostess didn't pause there. She led us past the hum of conversation and the clinking of ceramic, and up a discreet staircase to the third floor. The L shaped sushi bar dominated the room like a stage set for something ceremonial. Every seat was taken, every face rapt, every eye following the fluid motions of the chef's knife flicks, perfect cuts, concentrated coordination. It was mesmerizing, but I had reserved something a little more off script. At the far end of the upper room, tucked away from prying eyes, was a 2-seat alcove bar. It was intimate without being claustrophobic, sophisticated without pretense, a romantic hideaway in a temple of fish. The lighting was low and warm, bouncing softly off dark lacquered wood and the delicate grain of the countertop. It felt like a secret waiting to be unwrapped. In short, it was a very sexy space. And waiting for us, prearranged because I'd perused their menus, was Masumi Sanka Junmai Ginjo Sake. It glistened under the soft light, as rare and quietly dazzling as Chalermwan herself. 2 green Kiriko sake glasses, cut glass with a striking geometric pattern, rested at our places like jewelry. She turned to me with a look I was starting to recognize, half curiosity, half silent praise. Then she smiled, slowly and knowing, and I felt my chest loosen and my shoulders relax. Anticipation, awe, gratitude. As we waited for the first morsels, I could feel the warm energy of the room enveloping us. The air hummed with quiet chatter drifting in from the main room. But here, it was just us, tucked away in our own intimate little world. Our fingers playfully entwined as we chatted quietly about this and that, meaningless yet deeply meaningful at the same time. Edamame inspired omakase style dining is all about trust. No menu, no choices to make. The chef orchestrates the experience, sending out dish after dish of carefully crafted delights. Each art, each bite was art, not just food. The Thai, snapper, was as fresh as the deep sea. The monkfish liver was rich and indulgent, and the uni, sweet, umami, and briny in concert. Then there were razor clams and oysters, skate and barramundi, otoro, Atlantic cod, wagyu beef tartare, and more. Small dishes kept coming, each one more beautiful than the last. But what truly made the experience unforgettable was watching Charlie. Each beautiful new kozara placed in front of her made her eyes light up. Her smile spread wider with each bite. Her little gasps as she drank in the flavors, the textures, savoring each one slowly, delicately, were pure magic. I found myself mesmerized by the joy on her face. I didn't even need to taste the food myself to know how extraordinary it was. Her reaction told me everything I needed to know. As the last plate from the creative butterscotch macadamia roll was cleared away, I ordered a post dinner plum wine to share. It was deep indigo and sun kissed plum sweet. Charlie took a tentative sip, and her entire face lit up with that playful, adorable surprise I'd come to adore. She glanced around, making sure no one was watching, then leaned in, pressing her lips to mine in a kiss that tasted just as sweet as the wine. Time stood still. The bustling restaurant, the passing thoughts, they all faded away, leaving only the two of us, wrapped in that perfect moment. Her kiss was slow, soulful, and full of quiet intensity that spoke volumes without a word. It was one of those moments you don't want to end, where time feels irrelevant, and all that matters is the connection between two people. Turns out, I'd chosen well. Sushi Masato wasn't just good, it was rated the best sushi spot in all of Bangkok by Samurai Gourmet. I hadn't even known that when I booked it. Back in the grab, we rolled through the rollicking streets of Bangkok, the night air thick with anticipation as we headed to Havana Social, a swanky vintage cocktail bar and dance club that swept you through a wormhole to 1940s pre revolution Cuba. I've never been to Cuba, but Havana Social? In that dark, sultry corner of Bangkok? It was the closest I could imagine to what I'd heard in stories and seen in pictures. Because it's hip, because it's hidden, and because Bangkok loves a bit of theatrical flair with its cocktails, there's a catch to getting in. Outside, mounted like a relic from another century, was an old school push button payphone. Clunky, silent, covered in stickers and graffiti, yet suspiciously well maintained. The entrance? Sealed. Unless, of course, you knew the code. I'm not going to spill it here. Where's the fun in that? Let's just say if you've got half a brain, a smartphone, and a taste for mystery, you'll suss it out. I punched it in like I was a genius. The lock clicked, and with all the swagger I could muster, I held the door open for Charlie. She slipped past me, eyes sparkling. The door closed behind us with a hushed thunk, and we were through the looking glass. The ambiance oozed old world Latin swank that was intentionally aged to perfection. Rich red wooden walls and distressed pillars abounded. Patterned Spanish tiles intermingled with wide plank flooring. An old world bar back that was stocked with ultra premium liquors from around the world. The bar top lined with green glass and brass library lamps, antique wooden tables, trunks with old wooden seats, and deep upholstered couches. It all beckoned a sultry invitation to indulge in something deeper than a drink. We were hit with an intoxicating wave of Latin rhythm energy. A DJ was working the pulse of Cuban and world beats that swirled the air. The horns, that sexy Cubano percussion, a slinky piano in stride, and the smooth undertone of the upright bass oozed musical sexuality. The various nooks and crannies were bathed in sepia toned light. It was all alive with the buzz of conversation, punctuated by laughter, clinking glasses, and the occasional burst of horns and congas. This wasn't just a bar, it was a time capsule, a place where the past had come to life. I could already feel our heat rising as the music teased. I had a suspicion that the dancing would be something else entirely erotic, sensual, and as steamy as Havana's legendary summer nights. Charlie, cuddled into my side, I could sense the excitement in her, the eagerness to move, to lose herself in the rhythm of the night. There was a magnetic pull between us, an unspoken understanding that this night was going to be one for the books. I asked her what she'd like to drink, and she gave a little shrug. I don't know drinks, she said, soft and sincere, with just enough shyness to make her statement disarming. It was one of those sweet moments that slips inside and stays there. We found a low slung couch tucked around the corner from the bar, the kind that insists closeness. We sank into cushions as timbale rhythms washed over us, crisp, electric, and erotic. I leaned in, close enough to share her breath, and started gently probing her palate. Citrus or sweet, bold or floral, herbal or spicy. After a little playful back and forth, mint emerged as her winner. Fresh, cool, just enough bite to keep things refreshing. Like her. Just as our conversation slipped into soft, companionable silence, the kind where the eyes do all the talking, a server appeared with uncanny timing. I ordered a mojito for One, muddled mint, fresh squeezed lime, cane sugar, and a generous pour of white rum. Summer in a glass. For myself, I went with one of their signatures, the Ricardo Robson. Añejo rum, hibiscus grenadine, orange and lime squeezed to within an inch of disintegration, and a ribbon of honey to smooth it all out. It tasted like a slow dance in a Havana back alley. We locked eyes again as the server disappeared, and for a beat, the only rhythm was the bass line and the unspoken "What's next?" hanging in the air. Charlie wasn't much of a drinker, aside from an occasional sipping scotch we'd share in quiet moments back home, so I offered a quiet heads up. That one's sneaky, I said, nodding toward her mojito. It tastes like vacation, but hits like a freight train running over a tuk-tuk at full speed. No judgment, no warning lights, just a voice of experience trying to keep the night on its rails. She gave a little smile and a nod, curious and game, trusting me to steer the ship. She lit up at the first sip. Sweet, crisp, minty, alive with lime. And before long, her glass was more than halfway gone. The band was still tuning up, but the energy in the room had already shifted, rising like a warm tide, bubbling with promise. I leaned back with my own drink, watching her over the rim with a grin I couldn't hide, the look of a man who'd just pulled off the perfect surprise. This was exactly what I'd hoped for. An evening to breathe, to laugh, to let the world fall away and sink a little deeper into her spell. When she reached for her glass again, there was a playful flash of resolve in her eyes. Playful, focused, almost defiant, I laughed out loud. The look said it all. I'm chugging this glorious thing, and no one's stopping me. Easy there, honey. It's delicious. I love this. Why me honey? Charlie asked. Because you are so sweet. It's one of those names people use when they're in love with each other. A quiet intimacy called a term of endearment, like a nickname love invents. I reached out, offered my hand. Come on, baby. Let's dance before the rum really kicks in. And could she dance? Charlie moved like she'd been poured into the music. Graceful, fluid, charged, dangerous. There was nothing timid about it. Her every motion was alive with raw sensuality and that quiet, smoldering confidence some women seem to carry like a second skin. She didn't dance so much as command, and everyone noticed. How could they not? The world fell away. The clink of glasses, the buzz of voices, even the band, all of it blurred, dimmed, until it was just her and the music, with me, caught in her orbit, along for the ride. Every flick of her wrist, the perfect timed snap of fingers, every slow, deliberate turn, every smoldering glance she threw over her shoulder was magnetic, pulling me in, pinning me there. Me? I'm not gonna lie. I dance like a man avoiding a hive of red ants swarming over a bear trap. My moves are about 30% earnest flailing, 69% blind optimism, and 1% grace. Somewhere between wounded marionette and overly enthusiastic drunk uncle at a wedding. I make up for it, however, with a complete lack of concern for what other people think, throwing self conscious embarrassment out with the bathwater. But with Charlie, it didn't matter. She lit me up from the inside and made me feel like the only man in the room, like rhythm was something we made up between us. We'd been dancing for over an hour, her, her radiant and unleashed, fully in her element. Me, trying not to look like a winded oaf with two left feet. But I kept up, more or less. The sweat and tempo finally caught up with me, and I leaned in, kissed her cheek, breathless. Water! I gasped. She smiled and nodded, eyes glowing, hips already answering the next wave of sound. I returned to the periphery with two bottles of sparkling water, but Charlie wasn't thinking about hydration. The music owned her. The magic coursed through her soul. She moved as current through a wire, pure voltage. Every beat sparked something new in her, something wild and beautiful. Other dancers started orbiting her, drawn in by her sheer force like moths to a flame. And then, just like that, the spell broke. He was tall, ridiculously handsome, dressed to kill, and overconfident. The kind of man used to assuming the answer is always yes. He slid in fast, hands low, presumptive. He didn't ask. He grabbed. Fingers clamped well below her waist, yanking her toward him like she was something owed and owned. Big mistake. In one fast, fluid motion, Charlie spun low, precise, devastating. She shifted her weight, dropped her center of gravity, and used her own momentum against him. 1 second he was grabbing ass, the next he was eating floor. Hard. She had him in some kind of lock. His wrist bent at an unnatural angle, her grip like steel, pressing into a nerve that made him gasp out something between agony and a plea for mercy. She didn't bother with words. No lecture, no yelling, no performance. Just a fierce, storm-lit glare as she let go and walked away, her body still humming with rhythm, her eyes now lit with fire of a different kind. I was stunned, yet also wonderfully terrified by how fast it all happened. 1 second he was grabbing her ass as if she were chattel. The next he was gasping on the floor like he'd been zapped with a taser. She barely blinked. No drama, no shaken breath, not even a stray wisp of hair out of place. Just a storm unleashing its fury, then passing through. And yet, I knew. I knew that beneath that composure was a truth every woman carries. That moment when a man decides he's entitled to take and claim. It's not flirtation. It's ego, arrogance, stupidity, immaturity, and uninvited lust dressed up like cheap gold plated charm. Mama should have bitch slapped some manners into those testosterone gorillas when she had the chance to teach the word respect. Charlie simply happened to have a better skill set to handle that kind of Y chromosome bullshit. Most women don't have that luxury. And watching her reclaim her space with such calm, surgical precision made something deep in me flare. Pride and a deep, aching admiration. But there was also a slow burning rage at the fact that she even had to. We found a quieter spot at the far end of the bar, away from the pulsing crowd, and sipped the last of our second round. The night's edge softened, cooling like embers after a fire. I leaned in close, voice low and a little sheepish. I'm so sorry, honey. Dancing's such a raw, sensual thing, especially when you move like that. And, well, you being you, you're always going to draw attention, wanted or otherwise. She tilted her head, gazing at me, the smoldering flame still there but cooling, eyes steady and voice soft but firm. This why I don't go out. Always men want what I not give. But you like me when I'm dirty at shop. We have us. They don't have this. As she raised my hand to her lips and gave it a gentle kiss. I glanced at her and admitted. I shouldn't have left you there on the floor. It was an open invitation, and that will never happen again. I promised. She smiled, that quiet confidence still sparkling in her eyes. You sorry? I stay to dance. Nothing wrong. We go. Let's find quiet place. I want to show off. I didn't understand what she meant by show off, but I wasn't about to argue. Outside, a cabbie waited for a fare. He belonged to the night's rhythm. I showed him a screenshot of the speakeasy rooftop bar, the romantic refuge I'd picked for a nightcap, where soft lights and the city skyline promised a gentler pulse. Our driver moved through Bangkok streets with effortless ease, away from the heat of the floor, from the tension that had filled the air. Sitting beside Charlie in the back seat, my arm holding her sympathetically, protectively, though some deep breaths I felt the knot in my stomach begin to slack. The city sprawled beneath us. As we stepped into the elevator, it was like stepping into a different world where the night slowed, where the raw edges softened, and where something quieter but no less intense stirred. The space between us narrowed, not just with distance from what had been, but with something new, something unspoken and alive. My admiration for her had escalated into the stratosphere. The rooftop was everything I'd hoped for. A star studded velvet sky above and around us, the skyline of the Sukhumvit, rising and shimmering, a canyon of glass and light. We weren't looking at the city. We were in it, suspended among towers that blinked and burned against the night. The air was thick with soft techno and frangipani. I'll easily admit that it was an ego stroke walking in beside a woman like Chalermwan. She had beauty, yes, but also presence, quiet and self assured. Heads turned. Every last one. We were led to a glass topped table along the balcony rail, where the sprawl of Bangkok shimmered all around us. I pulled out her chair because, yes, I believe in being a gentleman. She sat, laced her fingers in mine, and looked up at me with that glint, the one that short circuited my brain every time. Kiss me, she said. I leaned across the table. I did. When I finally pulled back, breathless and grinning, I asked, Okay, what was that all about? She didn't hesitate. This place is fancy. Men bring bar girls. Bar girls not kiss, nor allowed to kiss. Now everybody know we together. I not bar girl, not just sexy sexy. I smiled, touched to the core by her pride and ownership of the situation, of me. She had clearly understood the moment we walked across the deck a social secret that I had not grasped. Ah, I understand. I rose and reached for her hand, guiding her up with tenderness. As she rose, I pulled her into me, full length and unguarded. Our bodies fitted together. We'd been designed that way. She folded into my embrace, arms winding tight around my back. We didn't move to music. We swayed to something deeper, an invisible rhythm that belonged only to us. The rooftop faded into the periphery. It was just her heartbeat and mine, sinking in some ancient, private tempo. After a long, breathless pause, I eased back just enough to cradle her face in my hands. My thumbs brushed her cheeks, memorizing the moment. Then I kissed her, soft and slow, with every morsel of care and love I had in me. Not to possess, not to impress, just to let her know entirely I saw her. Rhett and Scarlet had nothing on that kiss. When I finally opened my eyes, hers were already waiting, lit from within, misted and bright, a silent yes in their depths. We took our seats and waited some more. Then more. Whatever doubts might have lingered in the shadows evaporated with that kiss. Anyone still foolish enough to label her a bar girl would have had to deal with me. I would have seriously considered throwing them off the rooftop. How very Buddhist of me, I know. But let's be real. Charlie would have done it first, faster, and with better form. I'd just be the guy apologizing to the waitstaff while she adjusted her dress and walked away without a hair out of place. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the bartender watching us, his mouth set in a thin, disapproving line. I wasn't about to apologize for loving her out loud. We hadn't even been approached by a server yet. I raised my hand to flag one down, but Charlie grasped my hand and lowered it. Please, honey, sit. She looked at me with a sly glint. My turn, she said, and in 2 syllables, she flipped the energy of that place. She walked. No, she commanded her way across the rooftop to the dour barman, who now had the look of someone who knows they're in trouble. I was going to enjoy the hell out of what was coming his way. Her movement was slow, unapologetic, deliberate, the kind of walk that changes a room's temperature. A sachet like silk over fire that exuded pure sexuality. Every eye turned. Every conversation paused. She was the show now. She spoke with the bartender for over a minute, calm and composed, as I watched him obviously backpedaling and apologizing. She turned, then returned with that same ease, gliding back to our table. Charlie knew exactly what she was doing. The subtle grin she slyly sent my way as she sat said it all. Watch this. As if some invisible cord had been cut, the tension around us released. Service snapped into high gear. Servers emerged from the shadows like second line dancers. Sparkling water arrived, then poured into tall glasses with ice. A glass vase with fresh jasmine and orchids placed at the center of our table. A bowl of water with floating tea lights placed next to the vase underlit the flowers and our faces. And then came the piece de resistance, a chilled bottle of Bollinger Rosé, carried with ceremony and respect, a soft pop and a cascade of bubbles into tall flutes. Then the bottle nestled into a pewter ice bucket next to us. Whoa, honey, this is fantastic, I said, my eyes wide. How did you pull this off? Charlie didn't miss a beat. I say you husband and true love and stop fuck us around, she said, with a gleam in her eye and zero remorse. Then she burst into that musical laugh of hers. I also say you Hollywood big shot. She giggled again, absolutely delighted with herself. I laughed hard with her. When I finally caught my composure, I lovingly reprimanded her. Charlie, honey, we don't need to fib. Let's just be who we are and let the world catch up to us. But seriously, thank you. This is incredible. You are incredible. I gestured toward the bottle, still faintly hissing in its cradle of ice. How did you know I love champagne? Have we talked about wine? I can't remember. She shrugged, modest but proud. I not know. I say best they have. Must be good. I already pay. I blinked. That was very sweet of you, honey, but I know what this costs pretty much everywhere in the world. You shouldn't have. Charlie cut me off then, waved my concern away. You pay all the time. My turn now. Wait, how you know price? Her gears churned, and as always she was incredibly quick on uptake. She caught what I said. How you know champagne? There was curiosity in her voice now, genuine and intrigued. I paused to let some tension build. She took my hand in hers. How you know? She asked again, demanding a response. I leaned in and offered some of what I hadn't yet shared. I mean, you have to keep some intrigue, right? I worked in the wine industry for many years. Vineyards, operations management, production, retail with my own shop. You name it, I did it. I'm also a certified sommelier. This, I raised my flute, is kind of my thing. She tilted her head, amused, a bemused smile boring into me. Why you not tell me before? What is sommelier? We've been kind of busy, I said, smiling, and you never asked. She laughed, shaking her head. Anything else I not know? There went my plan to hold onto some secrets for later divulgence. I sipped, then launched into a story. I told her how champagne is made, how the color of rosé comes from limited grape red skin contact during fermentation, called Sagni, and which of Bollinger's estate vineyards in I Texorius and Verzenay likely produced the grapes in our glasses. When I mentioned I was also a musician, she laughed. Not way. Again, freaking adorable. Way, I laughed. Guitar, mostly, but some bass too. I also learned some engineering and production along the way. Played in a lot of bands over the years. She paused, eyeing me with scrutiny. A wonderful gap in conversation that highlights how comfortable we were with each other. Then she leaned in, eyes searching mine. Why you pick me? I didn't hesitate. No, you picked me. So there. She grinned. I like you like my fruit, mangosteen. Then you so nice and funny and flirt, the way you eat my fruit with passion. You make me like you. I chuckled, thinking about her statement. I didn't flirt. You did. She rolled her eyes in playful denial. I was attracted to you then, simply because you were so kind to me. You took your time to teach, feed me, and then refused money for the fruit you cut open simply to allow me to experience mangosteen. That really struck me and reinforced my admiration for Thai people. It still does. That's more important to me than anything. Kindness, intelligence, generosity, caring, and compassion. And I loved your laugh. It's musical. Let's see. There's also your smiling eyes, your quick mind, and the fact that I find you drop dead gorgeous doesn't hurt in the least. She made a pouty face. But I dirty and not dressed nice, she said in mock protest. I reached for her hand. Your smile lit me up. I saw you through the grime. It was easy, because you're you. She blinked, and suddenly tears slipped down her cheeks. She reached across the table and gripped my hands tight. A server hurried over and gently asked if she was all right. Charlie turned, smiling through tears. I love him so much, she said, laughing again as more tears poured forth, beaming at me with an expression I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. We stayed there long after the bottle ran dry, talking, laughing, falling deeper into what we were building. When I finally, quietly, asked if she wanted to come back to the apartment for a nightcap, she shook her head no. My heart dropped for a moment until she took both my hands and whispered, You come to Ban, um, home. I make nightcap for you. Relief flooded in. Yes, yes, I said. 1,000 times yes. I would love to. We cabbed back to the Sunreno. As we rode the elevator, she asked if I'd stay the night. Of course I said yes, but I needed to grab a few things. While I puttered around loading my day pack, she poured a small glass of black liquor, something viscous, herbal, sharp, cloyingly sweet, that she had smuggled into my fridge at some point. I asked her what it was, to which she put a finger gently to my lips, said, Shh, leaned in next to my ear and whispered, Make you strong. But she made me stronger than strong. She was more than enough for that. I packed only essentials. I glanced over to see her silhouetted at the window, framed in moonlight. I walked to her, wrapped my arms around her waist, pulled her gently back against me. She leaned into me, head against mine, as I nuzzled her ear and inhaled her scent. She was warm, floral, and unmistakably her. When we reached her place, she asked me to wait outside in the garden. "Some minute," she said, and closed the door with a teasing smile. I settled on a cushion for a micro meditation as frogs croaked nearby in the canal. A scooter buzzed by, followed by a drunk local tottering his way back home. Crickets chirped from all around as a breeze rustled the trees overhead. The world felt still, held. Then softly, "You come in now, Larry." I rose from the cushion and turned. The door cracked open. Inside, candle light flickered across the walls, and I could smell incense as the smoke swirled gently out the door from the small altar in the corner. Everything smelled of cedarwood smoke, flowers, and her. It was, quite simply, magical. The door closed behind me. A latch, a lock, a click. And there she stood, dressed the same as the day she was born. The futon was freshly made, pillows fluffed and sheet turned down. Pillar candles glowed. Her home was alive with warmth and intention. My breath caught as I gazed at her. I sank down onto the bed, body and mind giving in to her, to the night. I looked up at her and teased. "I thought you said we were going to have a nightcap, Charlie." She closed the gap between us, straddled my lap, wrapped her arms around me, forehead to forehead, then whispered into my ear, "I am Nightcap, honey." And that, my friends, is the end of part two. And we are just at an hour and a half into the live reading, so we are going to call it here for the night. Means we will pick up with Bangkok Siren Song, part three, next week. Andy, good to see you. I am very glad that you appreciate and love my readings. I love doing these. Now, see, the fun part about a lot of these live readings for me is the fact that I have not read ahead of any of this stuff. I don't know what's coming. I don't know what's going to happen next. So I end you'll notice as I read through this that I will stumble across words, especially in this where he throws in Thai words and things like that. I'm always going to have some issues with those. Don't speak Thai. But um I mean, what was it? Banquet table came up, and because my mind is in that mindset of the words are going to be something foreign at times, I couldn't get banquet out. Banquet, uh, just something weird. It's the little things. Now, for those of you guys who may be in Washington State, if you happen to be around in the Walla Walla area, just know that Mr. Larry Davidson is a sommelier in Walla Walla. I'm not sure what winery or place he is at, but he is down there if you happen to be in the area and want to stop in and say hello and how much you enjoyed his book. Just putting it out there for you. Yeah, this one, definitely his Bangkok chapter. We haven't, I mean, through the rest of the book, he hasn't had any of this, but he has definitely found a love in Bangkok while he is there. I don't know what part three of this is going to bring us, whether something's going to happen, whether eventually, because eventually he leaves Thailand and goes back home. I don't know if Charlie goes with him. I don't know if she has to stay. I I don't know. That's one of the joys of these live readings for me is I get to discover a lot of this stuff right alongside you guys. And I think it makes some of my reading more genuine as I go through. Now, if again, if I was recording this into an audiobook, then I would study ahead. I would have read through all of this already. I'd have had phonetic spellings out for all of these Thai words that he loves to throw at me. The Thai, the Latin, the things from Buddhism, Pali, all of that stuff. If you guys happen to know the correct pronunciations of some of these as I go through and I don't do it right, you are welcome to put them in there in a nice and respectful way. Just know that I will mispronounce a lot of these. Hell, I mispronounce English half the time. Um, so calmly and respectfully, you are welcome to add your corrections of my words in there if you see fit to do so. But thank you all so much for coming along with me on our journey through part 2 of Bangkok Siren Song tonight. I will be back again Thursday this week. Thursday is, of course, Stompy Mech Night. We will be diving back into Mech Warrior Online. We have Tactics of Duty to finish up. We're getting close to finishing it up, but we're not quite there yet. So, got to at least go through finishing up Tactics of Duty. Oh, Pneumano Ultramicroscopic Silicovolcanoconiosis. Well, I know that one because you and I have known that one since we were in high school. Um, Besser ein Spatz in der Hand als eine Taube auf dem Dach. Anyway, um, so I will be back with some MechWarrior Online and Tactics of Duty on Thursday night. If you have missed any of this book or any of the other books that I have done, I have a pretty wide variety available on my YouTube channel. I have things such as the Winter of the World trilogy. That was the first one I read on my live readings. So, probably not as good as I'm doing now, but you know what they say, practice makes perfect. I've got some of the Apprentice Adept series up there from Piers Anthony. I've got, you know, I have a variety of more popular books that I was reading prior to um, taking the step to get into indie author books. Lately, all of the books that I read are books by indie authors. And I do that. Ist dir eine Laus über die Leber gelaufen? Is there a louse running over your liver? Um, I've gone into reading indie author books because, for one, there are some absolute gems of books out there that you will never see or hear about because they're independently produced, written, and they're just not on the New York Times bestseller list. You may never hear about it. And so there are some great books that we have read, such as I'm really enjoying The Flow. Um, Gifted. If you have not checked that book out, another one that I highly recommend that I read. It's a grimdark fantasy and the first of a series of books. Get out there and check it out. But there are a variety on the YouTube channel for you to listen to. If my pacing isn't exactly what you would want, remember YouTube allows you to go faster or slower to your heart's content, up to 2 times the speed or down to, I don't know. I never go slower. But they are out there for you to listen to. Remember, if you are enjoying and you listen through any of the indie author books or any of the books really, and you enjoyed them, you are welcome to leave comments on my videos. Or better yet, if you enjoyed the book, go out to the author's page, write a review on Amazon, write a review on Goodreads. Those reviews for an indie author are gold. They help the author to get discovered. So if you listen to a book, regardless of my performance of it, and you enjoyed the book or didn't even care that much for the book, go write a review. Reviews, good, bad, or indifferent, mean everything to the indie author community. I interact with them a lot through Twitter, now X, um, and I know how much reviews mean to them. So go out and give them a review. When I finish this book, I will review it, just like I did the previous books that I've read, because it's the right thing to do. Anyway, now that I have chatted your guys' ears off for a little bit after the book, I want to wish you guys a wonderful night. The greatest gift that you can give me is a gift of your time. And I appreciate that you guys gave me that gift this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or for the hour and a half. Thanks so much for being here. I hope I will see most of you again on Thursday. If not, return with me on Saturday evening when we will dive back into the flow and we will pick up onto part 3 of Bangkok's Siren Song. Until then, have a great week ahead. Stay warm or cold, depending on what part of the world you're in. And I will see you guys all again soon. Have a great night, everyone.